guys, welcome to the program. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, all that good stuff. The first thing I was going to talk about today was the government shutting it down. And they do the same thing every time, right? Which is basically like, okay, Democrats are in power. We want you to do these things. And if we don't, we're going to shut it all down and we're going to blame Republicans. And then Republicans say, we're spending too much money on all this entitlement crap. We can't do it anymore. And then the Republicans get in power. And the Republicans say, all right, well, we want money for all these things. And the Democrats say, no, we don't want you to. Okay, if you want all that, we want all this. And the debt goes up and up and up and up and up. And before you know it, we're broke. And that's because if you want to know where inflation comes from, it's printing endless dollars and then raising your taxes and then screwing you with inflation. And they don't make enough money from their taxes because they know if they raise taxes to the point we could pay for all our entitlements, we'd go bankrupt. So then they just print more money, which is more inflation. So now we're getting taxed to death. We're getting inflated to death. We're getting inflated to death. Boy, I know that relates to many of you. Before I jump into that, this isn't a full story, so it won't make it to Odd Man Out as a full segment, but this literally just happened an hour ago. And I want to quickly report on this so you guys are aware of it and can check it out. And there'll be more releasing news on this, hopefully in the next day or so. So maybe I can do a full story on this as we find out more. But in Germany, a car is driven into, and it's not driven, a car was racing high speed, slamming into a crowd at the Magdeburg Christmas market in Germany. I have video of it. It is horrible. This car was doing 50 miles an hour and just plowed into a massive group of people. As far as they know, it's 11 people that are no longer with us, 11 people that have expired, and 80 others sent to the hospital. Now, I'll read through the story here because this, like I said, just happened. And Bild, an actual German magazine, and I do not know if this is a clickbait. I don't know if this is a clickbait website or if it's legit, but in the story down here, they do say that as WELT learned from security circles, it's said to be a man born in 1974 from Saudi Arabia. He is said to be in a rented vehicle, and they found a piece of luggage in it. I don't know if this is correct or not. This is just the very first reporting, so we don't know if this is an Aloha snack bar moment or not, being that it is a Christmas market, being that immigration being open to many in the Middle East, and that there are tensions. Odds are leaning in that direction. I will let you know as we hear more. But they said at least one person has been ended, according to German media. Now that's gone up to 11, 80 other people injured. They said a car drove into a crowd of people at Christmas market in the central German city of Magdeburg on Friday night. At least one person was ended, now 11. Police have taken the driver into custody, according to local government sources cited by Germany's DPA news agency. Authorities have closed the Christmas market and emergency services are at the scene. There are, 100 police cars and ambulances there. It is a mess. A spokesperson for Magdeburg University Hospital told DPA that the first 10 to 20 people have already arrived at the facility, adding, "We're currently gearing up for more. Intensive care beds are ready." State and federal politicians react to the latest Christmas market. They say this is a terrible event, particularly now in the days before Christmas. To the premier of the state of Saxony-Anhalt, Rainer Haseloff, said he's headed to Magdeburg. Regional government spokesperson Matthias Schupp said he suspected the incident was an attack, which of course it is. Friedrich Merz, chancellor candidate for the conservative CDU, said he was saddened by the, thoughts and prayers, all that good stuff. But when you open your borders to people that essentially hate you, can you really be surprised this happened? I'm going to full screen this. Let me pop this up. It's mostly blurred anyway, so that's what we have at the moment. I will keep you guys updated as I hear more. Depending on what's going on, depending on who the perpetrator is, we may or may not hear more about it. You can see the huge response. There must be in this video 100 emergency response videos or vehicles coming to respond to this. So it's an absolute mess. Naomi Seibert from Germany, she said, "Is this the bad person, the Terry Cloth wrist, who attacked the Germans' market? According to social media reports, this video shows police detaining the person." Again, this is all very, very new, so it hasn't been vetted. I will keep you posted on this stuff as I find out more, guys. But, we're 5 days before Christmas. When you have so many people that are religious fanatics moving into your country and are supported by many in the regimes and the elites and are openly doing this, can you expect anything different? I mean, I guess I wouldn't go on to say it's such a surprise. But we'll find out. Again, I'll keep you posted as we find out more. Okay, to the main story. Now, I'm not really thrilled the way they worded this, but it is kind of true. From Fox News, Trump-backed spending bill to avert government shutdown fails the House vote. President-elect Donald Trump encouraged Republicans to block the massive stopgap funding measure to put forward by Speaker Mike Johnson, and instead support a streamlined package that would deliver aid to farmers and those impacted by natural disaster. Okay, let's cut through the BS here and get to the truth of it, okay? Because you're going to hear a lot of these quotes coming up, and most of it is BS. The farmers' bill that's supposedly set to aid and deliver aid to farmers that are being impacted by subsidies and foreign foods coming in under price, that is only about 10% of that portion of the bill. 86% of that bill goes towards food stamps. It goes for public assistance and food stamps and things like that. So it's not really a farm bill, but they call it a farmer's bill, so you want them to vote for it because we like our farmers. Then there's a portion of a bill that funds cancer research. Well, that's already been passed by the House. It's now waiting in the Senate, and so far the Senate, Democrats have said no to it. So that's not even in this bill. There's aid, $100 billion of aid for people that were affected by the hurricanes and the non-response by FEMA. And so now the government wants to give $100 billion to, you guessed it, FEMA, which is also giving all that money to immigration and the borders and hasn't given much of it to the people that actually need it. So then when people say, well, I don't want my money going to FEMA, I want it to go to smaller organizations. Why doesn't the government give it to smaller organizations, not FEMA? Because FEMA's giving it to all these immigrants. When they say, no, I want it to go to the farmers, but we don't need to adjust food stamps so people can buy diet soda and candy bars on my tax dollar, and instead it only needs to support healthy foods. See, instead of all that, and then Trump comes out, because initially Trump said, I'm doing a big speech here. I could read the stories, but I'm trying to give you a quick summary so we're not here for 15 years because everybody's screaming at everybody because it's a complete meltdown. Now you've got Republicans arguing with other Republicans about it. But Trump came out initially and said, let's do this. He wanted to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion for his administration. I'm sorry, but at a certain point, we have to stop. And this is where I say, okay, Republicans, when they're in power, they're like, okay, well, the Democrats keep raising the debt limit so they can do what they want. So we want to do the same thing. That's what Republicans say when they're in power. And then when Democrats are in power and Republicans aren't, Democrats say, we're going to spend all this money on this stuff. And the Republican says, no, you can't do that. That's not fiscal responsibility. And everybody keeps talking about, well, if they don't vote the right way, they'll get primaried or something will happen. People will have long forgotten about this in 6 months. We live in such a fast food, short-term goldfish memory. Moment in time, because that's how we are with everything. it's not just regarding politics. It's everything. Everybody's like, ooh, what's the jingling keys over here? Oh, the jingling keys over there. Let me go pay attention to that. And then they pay attention to that, and everybody forgets what the hell happened 15 minutes later because we're a bunch of retards now. So Trump came out and he was for it. And then a bunch of Republicans said, no way, like Chip Roy and Massey and Burchett from Tennessee, my representative here. They all came out and said, no way, we are not giving $4 trillion more in credit card spending, and we can't even pay for it. We're going up. So anyway, that's kind of the basis of all this. And so Mike Lee, he came right out, and here's a great explanation of kind of what they're doing. You have a few people at the top of the Republican Party and a few people at the top of the Democrat Party, and they meet in secret, and they wheel and deal, and they make all these deals, and then they come out and they go, here's 1,500-page spending bill. You have 1 day. Now vote on this. I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to chew through 1,500 pages, even if you had 3 or 4 aides or 10 aides reading each, giving a segment of this, and then give you a report on what they read. They're supposed to do that in 24 hours, or if they don't, it's a government shutdown. Shut it down. Shut it down. If you can't get this wheeling and dealing done in a month so you can alter the bill and change the bill and argue about the bill and see what's even really in the bill, and you're going to drop 1,500 pages and give you 24 hours for the people to vote, and if they vote no on it because they haven't read it, suddenly they're a threat to the country, shut up with that. I'm sorry. We're done with that. I don't care if you're Trump that's saying it. I don't care if you're the Democrats or the Republicans that are saying it. This is how we bankrupt a country. Because all of them doing this is what makes inflation. It's the forever printing of money is inflation. Inflation's gone up, 20, 30, 40% on some goods in just 4 years. That's 40% more we have to spend on everything. It's a hidden tax, and it hurts the poor the most. And then when we say, please stop doing that, many Republicans and Democrats and Trump in the first round of this said, they came out and they said, no, just sign it. We'll worry about it later. How long have they been doing the we'll worry about it later? Since the mid-'80s. And it is going to bankrupt us. So anyway, Mike Lee says, writing a 1,500-page spending bill in secret, hiding it from most lawmakers until days before Christmas, giving them no chance to identify and fix serious problems with it, using threats to make colleagues vote for it, and justifying all of this by saying you have to get the votes. That's not leadership. It's legislative thuggery. These are the disgraceful methods of the firm, trademark symbol. And he's right on that. We are so tired of this. I'm not sure if all of these are in order. I just have them slammed together. This is basically they came out, and originally Trump said, yes, we'll raise the debt limit by $4 trillion because Democrats want that. We'll give all these giveaways, but we also get some help for farmers, but also we'll give it for because you have to make compromise, everybody. You have to compromise because they want to spend $4 billion and we want to spend $4 billion. So we need to compromise and only spend $6 or $7 billion instead of all $8 billion. And that's the compromise. Get out of here with that crap. So anyway, after Elon Musk came out and said, hey, this is how you go bankrupt. Like, we can't be having this. There was huge pushback against the Republicans that voted for this. And I think it was 38 Republicans said, okay, you know what? I'm joining in. We're not going to vote for this. We need to do line item voting. Because right now it's like an if-then statement, if you know your mathematics, right? If this, then this. Except there's also an and statement. If this, then this, and this, then this, then this, then this, if this, and this. And it keeps going on until we're bankrupt. And they have to vote on all of it or none of it. So 38 Republicans came out and said, no, line item voting. You want relief for the hurricane, people that got hammered by the hurricane? Vote on it. Next. Border wall. Vote on it. Next. Farmer relief, vote on it next. But see, if they do it that way, they can't get all their pork belly gotchas for all their individual districts and bankrupt us. That's really where we are with all this bull. And then the media spins it. Oh, Trump's plan is going to bankrupt. Oh, the Democrats blame them. And the media puts their spin on it, trying to change public news. I'll give you, or trying to change public sentiment, not public news. I'll give you the public sentiment on this. Stop spending us into oblivion. If Biden can just say, I'm giving $1.2 billion to Ukraine today, which he said today, he can also say, I'm giving $1.2 billion to, the people in North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia and northern Georgia that got hammered by this storm. He could do that. Why don't they? Because then they can't get all their goodies. They can't get their pay raise of 40%. And, this is the crazy thing. They want to give themselves a pay raise of 40% in this bill, from like $175,000 a year to like $245,000 a year or something like that. And do you know what they say that raise is? It's not a raise. It's a cost of living adjustment. So you're telling me the people in office right now want a cost of living adjustment of 40%, yet inflation's not 40%. And things are not 40% more expensive. Just give us 40% more money so we keep making the same thing because of adjusted costs. Do you see how stupid that is? It's either A, you're lying and it's a huge raise, or B, you're not lying and you're cost adjusting for inflation 40%, but we don't get 40% cost inflation. It also had a little term in there where the people in our government don't have to be don't have to use Obamacare. They can circumvent their own system they voted in and force us to use. I'm so hot under the collar over all this mess. And then you got people out there that are trying to push back against it, and you've got forever Trumpers, not the never Trumpers, the forever Trumpers saying, oh, this Chip Roy and Thomas Massie, they're not supporting what Trump wants to do. We need to primary them. Oh, it's so stupid. Now you understand why I haven't done a news story in a little while, because I just sit here and can't read the news to you because I get here angry and just rant. From Fox News.
Breaking news now on that situation with the possible government shutdown. Republicans now are strategizing in different ways to force lawmakers to pass a spending bill, a CR, continuing resolution, before tonight's deadline. Sources are telling Fox News House Republican leaders are expected to present 3 bills. 1, a clean funding CR. 2, disaster relief. You know how many storms we've had, hurricanes, so on and so forth. And 3, a farm aid. You know I'm a big component for that. I want there to be a farm czar when Trump gets into office. And they want a handshake agreement on acting on the debt limit and spending cuts next year. So they want to break out those emergency portions of that giant bill that came in from Democrats, that 1,500-plus page bill that got shrunk last night to 116 pages and still could not pass. They want to break off the farm aid and the storm bill, basically the emergency funding for people, and have that passed separately. Put those priorities first. One Republican lawmaker also is telling Fox they will be on the Hill all night long. The deadline, 11:59:59, they'll go beyond that to try to get this done. 2 others are expecting a House Republican conference meeting later today.
Now, I have no problems with breaking the bills apart. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But somewhere along the line, our government, these members of Congress and the Senate and everything, realize they can get all their goodies for their constituents and line their own pockets with our tax dollars by combining things. And then, so they come out and they say, hey, this bill has cancer research and $100 billion for Ukraine and $4 billion for finding out if monkeys get aggressive after drinking alcohol, and $200,000 for teaching LGHD TV stuff to Middle Eastern kids. And you say, no, I don't want all that crap. And then they say, Senator blah, blah, blah comes out opposed to cancer research. That's how they do this crap. And they think that people are just going to be mouth breathers and, oh, I'm so outraged. He's against cancer research. I'm going to vote him out. When in 15 minutes, they're going to be picking at their navels, eating their McDonald's and wondering what's next on television. They're not going to remember this in 4 years when it comes time to vote. You know how I know that? All the people that say that, oh, I want my freedoms and the government's too aggressive and they're too fascistic. They voted in people that told them they needed to lock down for 8 months because of the bug and the jabs and all that stuff. People forgot that was last voting cycle, and it seems like it's a million years ago. But she even gets it wrong. It's not just farm subsidies. It's money for welfare and money for food stamps and all this other crap. Well, Chip Roy came out and this isn't Chip Roy. This one's a Democratic Congressman, Richard Neal. He's so upset because Elon Musk's job as Doge, he was brought in by Trump to clean up the overspending, to clean up the swamp, to clean up the big giveaways, to clean up, have government oversight in this stuff. And then when you say, hey, we want to give, $1 billion or $2 billion for disaster relief, everybody says that's a good idea. I say that's a good idea. Where does that money go to, though? FEMA, and FEMA screwed it up. So it's just more, it's a good idea, except we're giving the money to people that screw it up and are horrible at what they do and just waste the money and line their own pockets, and then we're upset when it doesn't get voted through. Like, make that make sense. FEMA didn't really help anybody. FEMA didn't help anybody this last go around, but now you say you want to give FEMA more money so now they can help people. They didn't help anybody last time. So why are you going to give them more money to not help people again? It's just a waste of our money. Well, anyway, this Richard Neal loses it. He's so upset because Elon Musk is doing as Trump and others have asked him to do, which is call out the madness, call out the overspending, call out all the crap. And he has something to say about it. He's very, very angry. Now, remember, every time a Democrat says, this Elon Musk and his billions of dollars just doing what the Republicans want, what about George Soros? I don't hear the Democrats screaming about George Soros funding their things. What about Bill, what's his face? Why did I forget? Bill Gates. I don't hear them screaming and hollering about Bill Gates funding all their madness. Democrats don't have any problem with that billionaire. What about not George Soros? What about Jeff Bezos over at the Washington Post? They don't have any problems with Jeff Bezos giving them billions of dollars or millions of dollars to do whatever the Democrats want. But the minute the Republicans get their own wealthy guy that wants to put some skin in the game, oh, this is a threat to democracy. Get out of here with that bullshit.
Your currency in this institution is your word. We reached an agreement. We came to modest achievements. And a tweet changed all of it? Can you imagine what the next 2 years are going to be like if every time the Congress works its will and then there's a tweet? Or from an individual who has no official portfolio, who threatens members on the Republican side with a primary, and they succumb? This institution has a separate responsibility based upon the separation of powers.
Based Elon Musk, by the way. It's like, hey, if you're not going to work with this administration, we'll primary, get you out, get you somebody new. Based Elon Musk. I'm with Elon Musk on this. We've overspent. So, like he said, it's very threatening, and it is very threatening to have Elon Musk change the minds of congressmen and how they vote based on a tweet. Instead, we should do it like they've done it in the past, with lobbyists and meetings behind closed doors that are hidden from scrutiny in the public eye, and we need to do it with slush funds and dark money and George Soros, all behind closed doors. That's the way to do it. You can't just do it via tweet. That is, gosh, can you imagine what we'd become if we had to do things out in the open instead of behind closed doors in secret where people don't know what we're up to? That's what you sound like, dummy, just so you know. Eric Doherty says, just in, Congressman Chip Roy, a Republican from Texas, who is a true conservative. If you really want to know conservatism, that is Chip. He delivers a fiery speech against the GOP spending bill because it will increase the debt by $5 trillion. You never have any ounce of self-respect, he says. Here's Chip Roy. I like Chip. I don't always agree with Chip. Let me be real frank about this. Chip has said some negative things about Donald Trump that I do not agree with him. But I think if you were going to try to find like a true conservative person in the government right now, I think Tim Burchett for Tennessee is one of them. I think Chip Roy, the conservative from Texas, is another one of them. And again, I don't always agree with them, but they do want to hold the government in check, which is, at this point, I think is a good thing.
My son back home in Austin, who I haven't seen in quite a long time because I'm here trying to fight for him. When I got through cancer about 12 years ago, I made my promise to my kids that I would do everything I can to save this country. And what we're doing right now is to continue to double down on the things that are destroying the republic. We are going to increase the debt ceiling, not just $4 trillion, that's false. We have spent $4.7 trillion in additional debt in the last 19 months. We're going to increase the debt by $5 trillion. That's what's going to happen right here by Republicans, increasing the debt $5 trillion. And what are you doing in the same bill? $110 billion unpaid for, because you never have any ounce of self-respect to go out and campaign saying you're going to balance the budget, and then you come in here and pass $110 billion unpaid for. On top of the $200 billion you did for WEP, you guys won't agree with that, but the fact of the matter is $330 billion. Congratulations, you've added to the debt since you were given the majority again on November 5th. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. Yes, I think this bill is better than it was yesterday on certain respects, but to take this bill yesterday and congratulate yourself because it's shorter in pages but increases the debt by $5 trillion is asinine. And that's precisely what Republicans are doing. I'm absolutely sickened by a party that campaigns on fiscal responsibility and has the temerity to go forward to the American people and say, you think this is fiscally responsible. It is absolutely ridiculous. It also turns off PAYGO. It turns off the $1.7 trillion in automatic cuts under PAYGO, because this side of the aisle is profoundly unserious about actually reducing deficits, just as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are profoundly unserious about reducing deficits. The entire body has been racking up debt for my entire life. $36 trillion, $1 trillion of interest. We rack up $1 trillion every 100 days. And what are we going to do about it? We're going to run around and talk about cutting taxes, but not doing what's necessary to cut the spending along with the cut taxes.
Now, one of the things that's important here to remember, and he's right on this, and because it is a golf ball that turns into a snowball slowly, and that snowball turns into a basketball a little bit quicker, and that basketball turns into a football stadium very quickly. Right now, every 100 days, just in interest is $1 trillion. Now you say, Joker, that is 365 days in a year. So basically, that's like $3.65 trillion per year in interest before we spend a penny. And the answer to that is that's right. Then when you add $2 and $3 and $4 and $5 trillion spending bills to this, now we're at $5 and $6 and $7 and $8 trillion a year. And then when they have to pay for that, because there's no way in earth they can tax businesses and people and billionaires and trillionaires. You cannot tax people that much to pay back that kind of debt. They're forced to print it, which means more interest, which means pretty soon it's going to be $100 trillion of interest every 90 days instead of 100, then every 80 days instead of 90. And it's just going to get down until we're frickin' Venezuela. And somebody has to be the adult in the room and say, look, the left wants this. You don't get any of that. The rights want this. You don't get any of that. We have to do it within a budget. And none of them will do it because they're afraid that the news will say, so-and-so came out against cancer research on gerbils that might someday give you a cure for Alzheimer's in cats, which might someday cure arthritis in your grandmother. Ah, they hate your grandmother. And they're so afraid of the media calling them out on this stuff that they just keep printing and going. Well, Donald Trump, after hearing Chip Roy say, no, I'm not going to give the Republicans all the money they want. No, we shouldn't give the Democrats all the money they want. This came out from Donald Trump. He said the very unpopular congressman from Texas, Chip Roy, is getting in the way, as usual, of having yet another great Republican victory, all for the sake of some cheap publicity for himself. Republican obstructionists have to be done away with. The Democrats are using them, and we can't let that happen. Now, let me just stop here. This is Trump rhetoric. It's fine. We know this about Trump. But Trump is not a conservative. He is a middle-of-the-road moderate, believe it or not. Because if you go back and look at conservatives, he's nowhere close to a conservative. But this is the most I think a lot of the choices he makes actually make the world more conservative. So I think that's true. But he's saying, look, give me the money I want. Give me the power that I want. Give me everything I need because we need to make America great again. I mean, I like that idea, but you can't do it with money printing because then we do it, then they do it. And then when I say we, I mean the more conservative side of the aisle. They do it, then they do it. And that's what puts us where we are. So Trump's, of course, lambasting him. And I don't agree it's some cheap publicity stunt for himself. I've followed Chip Roy for years. I think he genuinely wants to hold the government in check. And I don't think the Democrats are using him. It's just the Democrats are voting no and Chip's voting no. That's the problem. He said our country is far better off closing up for a period of time, agreed, than it is agreeing to the things that the Democrats want to force upon us, agreed. Biden is president and his obligation to properly lead. Where is he, though? We're there to do the right thing, and we can't agree with what Biden and the Democrats are demanding. Weak and ineffective people like Chip have to be dismissed as being utterly unknowledgeable as the ways of politics and to making America great again. Put America first and go for the victory, even if it means shutting the government down for a period of time. We had an overwhelming victory just 4 weeks ago. We're not going to let the Democrats forget it so quickly. I get what Trump's saying here, but if you really want to make America great again and you want to make America first, you can't keep hemorrhaging money because then it doesn't matter who's in office. It's too late. Then you can't stop the snowball and the runaway train. Obama jacked up printing to put through all his entitlements. Trump jacked up printing to get us through COVID and the pandemic and the bug and the jabs and all that stuff. And then Biden cranked up printing because Trump cranked it up. And he wanted to give away the entitlements again. And now Trump wants to crank up the giveaways again so he can start fixing our economy by putting in incentives for businesses, but that costs money. And he wants to lower taxes on big business and middle and small business. But to cover the taxes that are missing by lowering taxes on business to get our economy roaring again, which is very a la 2008, guess what you have to do? You got to print money because you can't pay the taxes, so you got to print the money. It's tiring. Chip Roy responds. He's just like, I'm not going to play the video because I'm going a little long in this segment, but Chip responds like, hey, I don't care what he calls me. I'm just trying to fix the Dollar Store Obama. This is Gunther Eagleman. He says Dollar Store Obama says Republicans keeping child cancer research from being funded. The problem is this same bill is sitting in the Senate. It's passed the House. So this is Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat Senate minority leader. And this is the guilt tripping I'm talking about. This is the guilt tripping where they come out and they say, oh, they hate children and they hate cancer research. This bill that is being passed has nothing to do. That's already passed the House. It's sitting in the Senate. Has nothing to do with the mess that's going on in the House right now. But he wants to make this look like Republicans are bad, and so they can get the bill passed.
Republicans are marching America to a painful government shutdown that will crash the economy and hurt working class Americans because they would rather enact massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors than fund cancer research for children. Republicans.
And that's already been corrected in several other posts. He's lying. He's lying. The cancer thing was separate. It already passed. It's being held up in the Senate by, wait for it, Democrat Chuck Schumer. So who's holding it up? Republicans in the House? Nope. Democrats in the Senate. Now you know the truth. Jamie Raskin, Democrat, losing his mind.
Where are you on this negotiation?
We had many weeks of negotiation with the Republicans. We arrived at a bipartisan legislative compromise. The Senate Democrats, the Senate Republicans, the House Democrats, the House Republicans, everybody agreed, and then it was blown up by Elon Musk.
Now, this is the part, he's telling the truth, by the way. He is telling the truth. The leadership of the Democrat Party in the House and Senate, the leadership of the Republican Party in the House and the Senate, they all met and made this wheel deal stuff. And everybody down below them didn't know what was going on. And then everybody down below is given this 1,500 pages and said, read this, we're voting on it tomorrow. You need to vote yes. And when they flip through the pages and they go, hey, there's a lot of bull in here I'm not going to vote for, they get, okay, we're going to come after you. You're not going to be on any House committees. You're not going to be put in charge of anything meaningful. We're going to try to primary you and get anybody that'll replace you in. You need to play by the party lines or we're going to get you out. And if you don't think that's happening on the Republican side as well as the Democrat side, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. So he's not lying. The problem is they're talking about a handful of people out of the 500 in the House and Senate.
Who apparently has become the fourth branch of government. And that's just an intolerable way of proceeding under representative democracy. So the Democrats are going to try to figure out how we can salvage the public good out of the wreckage that has just been foisted upon us.
But do you think that there's a scenario where you might regret rejecting a clean debt ceiling increase? I mean, that's what they've added to this.
We're going to discuss this in our caucus, and we'll figure out what to do.
Now, what's fascinating about this is Rep. Thomas Massie. If you don't know Thomas Massie, most based individual, he's very much like Ron Paul. Thomas Massie said, this is so easy, everybody. We can solve this in 3 seconds. One issue, one bill, one vote. Then another issue, another bill, another vote. And we keep doing it like that, the way the founders intended, until we get everything passed. But no, we got to jam it all through in one big vote. This is about the cancer research. It turns out the cancer research funding, the Democrats are blaming it on Elon Musk. It's sitting in the House. It was introduced as a standalone bill that has already passed the House and is waiting in the Senate and being held up by Democrats. But I already mentioned that. Now, listen, this is my issue, right? This is why I'm getting so angry and so heated up about this stuff. They keep saying, oh, we got to vote on this. And we have to give free giveaways for this and giveaways for that. And that's the only way we can help the poor people of North Carolina and Tennessee with rebuilding their homes, because it's wintertime and they're living in tents, which is true. And they say, well, we've got to vote on this. How dare you not want to help out those poor people? Why don't you just give them $1 billion? Why don't you just say, here's $1 billion, here's $2 billion? Because guess what? Biden is doing it for Ecuadorian Amazon. So today is $1 billion for conservation of the Ecuadorian Amazon. A month ago, it was $1 billion for South Africa, or not specifically South Africa, but Southern Africa, so that they could try to get to creating their own food and for conservation and water. So if we can give $1 billion to Africa, various countries in Africa, and we can give tens and hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, and we can give $1 billion of relief to Haiti, and we can give $1 billion of relief for Ecuadorian Amazon, why do we have to vote with a bunch of other bullshit to give $1 billion of aid to North Carolina and Tennessee? That's the kind of stuff that Chip Roy and Thomas Massie and Tim Burchett and some of these others are calling out. Here's White House press secretary just saying, Biden's decided to give $1 billion away to Ecuadorian Amazon, everybody.
Earlier this week, as you all saw, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation announced a $1 billion financial initiative to support conservation of the Ecuadorian Amazon. This is a result of the president's recent trip to the Amazon and a continuation of the administration's effort to support innovative ways to address climate change through sustainable growth and development without burdening countries facing financial constraints.
Okay, so you want to, it's climate, right? That's their big thing, and they want to help them with climate issues. And then listen to this last part. This is what's clutch.
Change through sustainable growth
right here.
And development without burdening countries facing financial constraints.
Without burdening countries facing financial constraints. I know a country that's facing a financial constraint. The United States. We're out of money. You're just spending money on the credit card right now. And so you're taking $1 billion of my partial tax dollars and $1 billion that you've printed that will be inflation on my food and my electric bill and the products that I buy. You've taken basically my money and my income and my hard labor, and you've given it to Ecuadorian people. Great. Can you give it to the Tennessee people? Can you give it to the North Carolina people that are struggling right now without homes, without roads, without grocery stores, without power, without food? What's that you say? No, we have to vote on that. We can give free giveaways to other countries, but you have to vote on that. Oh, and also we're going to cram in all this other crap in there as well. See, I think as much as I'm happy that Trump got into office, as much as I support Trump, as much as I think Trump will generally do the right thing and is the best choice for this country right now, I can tell you this, if Trump takes $5 trillion plus the inflation, so they wanted a $5 trillion tax increase for 2 years, which if you math that out, in 2 years they're going to ask for another $5 trillion. That's $10 trillion. And every year on the books, we're adding $3 trillion in interest, which across 4 years of an administration is $12 trillion. That means in 4 years, you're talking about $22 trillion. In all of the American history, 22 trillion. It took from 1776, actually when the Federal Reserve was created was after that. But if you're just talking about the inception of the United States, 1776, all the way up until what? 2008, 2010, we made it to without $22 trillion in debt. And now you're going to add $22 trillion of debt in one administration? And then you want to yell at people like Thomas Massey and Chip Roy who are like, no, we're done doing this? I'm sorry. I'd like Trump to have all the things he needs to get things done and taken care of and to make the country great again. You can't keep printing it, guys. You can't. So my answer, shut it all down. Shut it all down. This is my representative, Tim Burchett, on the shutdown. He was asked by CNN what the deal is. I'll wrap this segment up with this.
What they're talking about is to move a stopgap measure. Let me ask this, Congressman Burchett. We're live on air right now. So it sounds like to me, based on what I'm talking to other members, is that they're talking about these three different bills. The stopgap measure to keep the government funded until mid-March, and also the about $100 billion or so of disaster relief and $10 billion in aid to farmers. All is one bill to come up tonight. Is that what's going to happen?
Well, the $10 billion to farmers, 83% of that is food stamps, and the largest portion of that is using food stamps to pay for soft drinks. So there's a lot of misnomers.
Okay. But that being said, the three bills will be tied together as one.
Pretty good grasp.
Okay, and that's supposed to come up tonight.
Well, possibly.
Do you think that it will pass the House?
I think it will. I think Hakeem's for it probably. So I think we're probably.
You've been disappointed by this process. I mean, what do you think about this?
It's just the sewer. It's just what it is. It's never any different. Just this time, people are a lot more aware of what's going on, and we're getting more public input.
I mean, you guys were in there for 2 hours. Take us inside the room. What was it like in there, and how much debate, how much division was there?
Well, first of all, I was a little disappointed in the sandwich tray. It was a little lackluster at best, but it was good debate, and everyone was allowed to speak, and everybody came to the mic, and something would trigger something else, and they'd go back up to the mic, and they were given their 1 minute. So, it's the way it's supposed to work. It's just there's a lot to comprehend in the next little bit, so we'll see.
How many Republicans do you think will oppose this plan?
I have no earthly idea.
You'll vote no.
Do what?
You'll vote no.
Possibly. Thank you.
I like Tim. I've met him in person. He is so based. When Tennessee had the hurricane damage and everything, and I went down to one of the donation sites, he was there, and he was getting his photo taken and shaking hands and passing around checks, but he was also loading up vehicles. He was there on the ground. That's someone that and it wasn't just for a photo op. I know this is a sidestep, but I still feel there are good people in government. He was there, and Glenn Jacobs, who formerly known as Kane in WWE wrestling, both those guys were down there. And I'll tell you something, both of them were breaking a sweat. They weren't just there for photo ops. They were there long before the cameras, and they were long there after the cameras. I do have faith in some points of our government still, and some people in our government, and I think some people are trying to do the right thing. But the truth of it is that if you look at the job reports for the last few years, ever since the bug and the pandemic and all that, and they laid so many small businesses failed, so many people ran out of money, so many people they just ran into really hard times, and you can't print your way out of that. You can't just print your way out of that. And so after all these businesses failed and the employment numbers started falling off a cliff, President Biden came out and gave unprecedented numbers of jobs in the government, not private sector. So government employees out there, if I have any viewers that are government employees, I like you. I appreciate you, and I'm glad you're there. There's a lot of you that we don't need in the government right now, and we're going to need to weed them out because a lot of them it's welfare. It's a welfare state, except now you just have a title of working for the government, and then you sit at home and you don't do anything all day. And to clean those people out, I think we're going to have to shut things down and shift things around a little bit, and it's going to hurt real government jobs that are really needed and are done by important people. But we're going to have to feel some pain. Because, again, these 14 million jobs that Biden supposedly created, most of them are recovery from the pandemic. And on top of that, millions, actually, I can't say hundreds of millions. I don't even know if it's tens of millions, but I think 4 or 5 million of those jobs are government jobs. That's not growth. That's our money getting wasted towards that. And so they need to keep printing more to keep paying for this big overbloated government. I want a government shutdown. I want these entitlements on the Republican and the Democrat. I want it all to end. We can't afford to pay all this. I don't want a government much bigger than my local DMV and post office. We can't keep doing this. And unfortunately, in this situation, now the good news is Trump heard the blowback to the size of this bill, and he listened to the people. He did listen to the people, and he said, okay, let's adjust this. Let's work on this. Let's make some changes. I'll give Trump credit on that. But for him to attack Chip Roy and therefore attacking people like Thomas Massey and attacking people like my representative because we just don't want the money printers to keep going burr. And Republicans say, well, the Democrats do it, so we want it now too. Who's going to take charge of the helm? Who's going to take control of the wheel before we crush into an iceberg? I don't know, but we're in deep, deep trouble. Let me read the live chats. I'm sorry. I went way long on this segment, but I get so upset over this. Like, legitimately, you want to talk about feeling pain. You feel pain at the pump because of inflation. You feel pain at the grocery store because of inflation and money printing. And then Republicans are like, yeah, we want to use the money printer too. Democrats have had it for the last 4 years. It's our turn. Someone's got to be the adult in the room, man.